Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope most of you are doing amazing, inshallah. So, I wanted to respond to Mohammed Hijab, your video on the Dawah Bro controversy. I am actually glad that you got yourself involved because I am hoping that this has created space for some real dialogue without the tantrums and the emotional outbursts of Ali Dawah. And although I don't particularly like you or agree with you, I do respect the fact that you are educated and hopefully capable of having some real discussions. So I believe the core of your message was that Muslim men and women don't need to be enemies, and it's time for us all to end this conflict between Muslim women and the Dawah Bros. I don't agree with that. I think Muslim women calling out the Dawah Bros is us standing up against years and years of harm caused by you guys. And I think us standing up against the bullying and calling out the toxic behaviors is absolutely necessary in order for things to change. However, I will say I think there could be maybe more productive ways of us all achieving what it is we want, which is for us Muslim women to stop being harmed by Muslim men and for the Dawah Bros to save their image, right? So I am hoping that through these videos we can come to have more serious discussions and can lead to better outcomes. However, we are not going to be able to achieve what it is we all want through the way you've gone about it here. You said you don't know the ins and outs of what happened, and fair enough, it went on for far too long, and I am not here to rehash every detail. But what really does matter here is what the situation represented. And at its core, what happened was me using my platform to openly speak about divorce, abuse, just making jokes, lash tutorials, me just simply existing online in a way that was not causing harm to anyone, threatening anyone, or promoting anything dangerous. And in response to that, I was singled out by Ali Dawah and aggressively targeted, not through a conversation or a debate, but through hostility, through character assassination, through criticism on my looks, and public denouncement. I strategically chose to respond with humor to expose how disproportionate and aggressive his attacks were, and also just to expose the absurdity that is Ali Dawah. And the whole situation went viral because this was not just about me. Thousands of Muslim women got involved, speaking openly, criticizing, mocking, laughing at the Dawah community because something finally cracked. The entire situation revealed just how much aggression Muslim women have been absorbing from Muslim men, from the Dawah Bros, for so many years, and how we are just expected to quietly take it. So, when one woman stood up against it, it gave so many women the courage to do the same. And the scale of the reaction just goes to show how much anger and frustration and suppression had been sitting under the surface for a very long time. And the backlash I also received from Muslim men for simply laughing back also goes to show just how deeply ingrained the expectation is that women should just ignore and tolerate hostility from the Dawah figures without saying anything. This whole situation really should have raised some serious questions amongst the religious leaders. If women laughing and speaking and pushing back causes this much disruption, what does that say about the environment women have been living in? because this didn't just come from nowhere. The backlash the Dawa scene is facing now is the result of years of women being scapegoated and policed and blamed and spoken to with so much harshness, all while being told that this is for our own good, that this is for the sake of Allah, that the Dawah bros mean well. And that context really matters because without it, nothing that happened really makes any sense. Now, in your video, you describe the issues women in the West are raising as first world problems, reducing everything to things like cooking and cleaning. Now, you know very well that women are not turning to feminism because of chores. Cooking and cleaning are things that we do regardless of whether we're married or not. That's not the issue. What women are speaking about, what we have always been speaking about, is harm. We are talking about abuse, about coercion, about violence, about intimidation, bullying, from our basic human rights and autonomy to life threatening realities. In the last few months alone, I have personally faced coordinated harassment by Ali Dawa, doxing, threats of being raped, threats of being unalived, having my home actually broken into, having Muslim men recognize me in person and try to intimidate me. Muslim women are talking about real world harm that is caused by Muslim men and caused by the Dawah bro community. We're talking about domestic abuse. We're talking about the over 2 million women in the UK last year alone who experienced domestic abuse. Not just at the hands of partners and husbands, but also from fathers, from brothers. We're talking about the one woman a week on average in the UK who is unalived by a partner. We're talking about how dangerous it can be for women to leave abusive relationships. We're talking about stalking. We're talking about threats. We're talking about sexual abuse. We're talking about domestic abuse against children. The 6,000 Muslim children who go into care every year in the UK, with domestic abuse being the leading cause of that. We're talking about Muslim women here in the UK still being forced or coerced into marriage. We're talking about how difficult it can be for a woman to attain a khulla, even in situations where there is real physical harm. We are still told to remain patient for the sake of God. Muslim women here in the UK are talking about real harmful, life threatening situations. So, you saying that we are all so privileged here, that we have first world problems like cooking and cleaning, you have diminished the suffering of millions and millions of women. And the way you frame this really matters because you are obviously a very clever person. So either you genuinely didn't know that these are the issues women in the West are facing, in which case goes to show how little women are listened to or taken seriously, or you did know and you still chose to reduce these realities to things like cooking and cleaning, in which case feeds directly into the very dynamics that women are pushing back against. Men downplaying our suffering and our experiences and deciding for us what is and isn't important enough to speak about. Either way, the conclusion is the same. Women are not being heard, we are not being taken seriously, and our pain is being dismissed, whether that is through ignorance or deliberate minimization. But this is exactly why women are not speaking quietly anymore. When Muslim women are mocked and harassed and threatened and told that our suffering is trivial by Muslim men, silence stops becoming an option. This didn't happen because we wanted chaos with the Dawah bros. This happened because our silence was not protecting us. Our silence was protecting our abusers. And we refused to be enablers of our own abuse any longer. And now this is where a much deeper problem begins. You Dawah bros love to remind us that we don't need feminism because Islam has given us all our rights. But that message no longer lands with us the way it used to. And it's important we be honest about why. It's not because Muslim women have become rebellious. It's not because we have become too westernized. It's not because we have become hostile towards Islam. It is because trust has been broken. When Muslim women raise serious concerns about abuse and coercion and violence and injustice, and that is mocked and belittled and dismissed for so many years, something changes. When our suffering is being reduced to jokes about cooking and cleaning, when you decide that what we're going through is not important enough to talk about, we stop believing that the people addressing us actually care about our safety or our dignity. And it's not just that our pain is being dismissed, it's that it's being actively produced and reinforced by the very figures who are telling us to stay quiet. I can't even say with all due respect here because I truthfully have so little respect for you. You were involved in your own scandal last year. You were exposed for having another secret wife, denying her of her marital rights, and then exposed for conspiring with other Dawa bros, such as Ali Dawa, in a group chat of 75 du'at where you guys were plotting with one another on how you would cover up this scandal. To which you guys settled on the idea of discrediting her as mentally ill and as someone who has doubts in the Quran and therefore can't be trusted. And when it was asked, well, what if we actually push her to suicide? Your response was, well, to be honest, if she's an apostate, we shouldn't care. A woman who is a single mother, a woman who was once your wife, her life had zero value to you. You've come running now to the defense of Ali Dawa, saying, you know, guys, we shouldn't hate him just because of the mistakes he's made. He's a good guy. But a woman you were once married to, a woman who was once your wife, her life, the life of her child, which would have been destroyed had she taken her life, had zero importance to you. Now, I agree with what you said. You are absolutely not a representative of Islam. However, there are many uneducated people out there who think you are. How are we as Muslim women supposed to trust and respect you dawah bros when you have been exposed time and time again to care so little for the lives and the dignity of your Muslim sisters? We are tired of our dignity being stripped from us. We are tired of Islam being repeatedly weaponized against us to discipline us and demand our endurance. It has become impossible to keep separating the message from the harm. It is just the constant belittling and policing of women non-stop by you dawah guys. The aggressive harshness you come at us with for things like eyelashes, while you overlook and forgive each other for the actual harm you guys are causing to women. Muslim women are hearing scholars and dawah bros saying things like, if a woman is raped and unalived by a man, it is her fault. Saying things like, if a wife denies her husband sex and he goes and commits zina, then she shares the sin. Normalizing PDF files, encouraging child marriages, encouraging marriages to 1 day old baby girls. Hearing scholars and dawah bros saying that if the husband has to go and get a secret wife, it's the fault of the first wife. You weaponizing hadith to justify lying to your wife and hiding a whole secret family. Scholars saying that it's an honor to the woman that the husband is allowed to beat her. Scholars saying that if a father essays his daughter, he doesn't face any consequences. The daughter just has to dress more modestly around him. Saying that it is not permissible for a woman to leave her house to eat. It's not permissible for a woman to drive. It's not permissible for a woman to wear a goddamn backpack over her abaya. It's not permissible for a woman to leave her home unless it is absolutely necessary. These are the kind of things that we are hearing, not from fringe voices. These are from coming from people of status, of power, of religious authority. This is from people who are presented as the representatives of Islam. So when you guys tell us just turn back to Islam, what many of us are hearing is return to the same structures that failed you. Not because Islam itself is unjust, but because the way it has been interpreted and taught and enforced by men has actively contributed to our suffering. And this is why so many women have lost respect for dawah figures. This is why trust in Islamic leadership has eroded. And this is why your appeals to patience and silence is no longer working. We need to be protected from these corrupted interpretations of Islam, not told to return to it. And then you guys really keep wondering why Muslim women keep saying that they're being pushed away from the religion because of men. I swear, had I not had the faith and knowledge in Allah that I have, and I heard these things from the scholars, from you da'wah bros, and I had been through what I had been through in the last few months because of Ali Da'wah, wallahi, I would have been long gone from this religion. For so long, we have been trying to separate the people from Islam. This is coming from the people, it's not coming from Islam. But when you guys are doing what you're doing in the name of Islam, you're doing what you're doing in the name of da'wah for the sake of God, harming women for the sake of God. It becomes impossible to keep separating that. You cannot spend years dismissing women's pain or actively playing a role in creating it and then be surprised when women stop believing that you guys have the solution. This didn't come from women wanting to reject faith. This came from women realizing that our faith was being weaponized against us. Which brings me to a point you made about Sunni Islam being the biggest tribe in the world and us not wanting to lose membership of that. Respectfully, a lot of us don't want to be a part of your tribe anymore. And it's not that women are leaving Islam, we are leaving your gatekeeping of it. Because what many of us have realized is what's harmed us is not actually the Quran, it is the way that the Sunnah and the Hadith have been selectively weaponized against women. A lot of women have come to the understanding that being a part of this tribe does not bring them the safety and protection and belonging that a tribe is supposed to provide. For many of us, it has meant suffering. It has meant being dismissed, being abused, and being silenced. And so a lot of women are choosing to center the Quran out of survival, not because they are rejecting faith, but because they are so desperate to hold on to their faith without being crushed by it, without being abused by it any longer. So, as you are seeing more and more women walking away from the structures that you represent, it's important that you understand it is because too many of us have learnt painfully that what is being offered to us as belonging often comes at the cost of our safety, our dignity, and our humanity. And it is a price that we are just not willing to keep paying, nor is it what I believe our kind and merciful Lord wants for any of us. Before I wrap up, I just wanted to speak a little bit about feminism too, because I know how much you guys love feminism. So, when Muslim women talk about feminism, we are not talking about ideology. Okay, we are talking about practical rights and protection. We are talking about the ability to drive a car, the ability to open a bank account, to work and earn independently, to rent and buy properties, to leave abusive marriages. For those of us living in the UK, those rights are not guaranteed to us by Sharia because we don't live under Islamic law. We live under Western legal systems shaped by feminist reform. Feminism is also what ensures women are taken seriously by the legal systems. It is why domestic abuse is investigated. It's why marital rape is recognized as a crime. It is why children in unsafe homes are protected. Without these structures, so much of the abuse that women face would go unaddressed. Feminism also provides frameworks for women to advocate for themselves and for one another. It allows us to speak publicly, to organize, to build support networks, to challenge institutions that fail us. These are not abstract ideals, these are tools that save lives, including the lives of Muslim women. So, when you men say you don't need feminism, Islam has already given you your rights, it completely ignores the reality of our lives. Because while, yes, Islam gives us rights in principle, principles without enforcement do not protect women. Feminism is what ensures those rights can actually be exercised in the society we live in. So, yes, many Muslim women believe in feminism, not as an ideological replacement to Islam, but as a practical, necessary, life saving framework that allows us to actually live with safety and dignity and autonomy. And this is where the argument becomes even harder to ignore, because if you men want us to abandon feminism and rely solely on the rights given to us by Islam, then we have to be honest with ourselves and ask ourselves, how are those rights being implemented today? Because in many Muslim countries, women have little to no legal protection despite claims of Islamic governance. Girls are denied education in Afghanistan. FGM is still prevalent in places like Somalia. Pakistan has some of the highest rates of honor killings in the world. In Egypt, violence against women at the hands of their spouse is often not even recognized as a crime. So, how are these rights that are supposedly given to women by Islam being enforced in practice? The truth is that the opportunities, the freedoms, and protections that Muslim women have in the West are not things we would have access to had we been born back home. So, yes, feminism started as a white movement for white women, but we cannot deny the fact that regardless of who it was started for, it has bettered and served the lives of millions of Muslim women who choose to live in the West. And I have to ask, if we can establish feminism is what practically gives women their rights living in the West, and that those rights are not guaranteed to us by Sharia because we do not live under Sharia, how then does it make sense to demonize feminism as aggressively as you do? How does it then make sense for so many Muslim men to declare someone a kafir for being a feminist? Feminism is literally why Muslim women in the West can leave abusive marriages, can advocate for themselves, can manage their own finances. Why is something that protects women's safety and dignity treated as a threat? It really makes me question whether the opposition is really ideological at all, or whether it is about control and keeping women dependent and silenced under the guise of Islam. Feminism is not a foreign threat to Muslim women in the West. It is the framework that allows us to live freely and safely in the society we inhabit. And so your systematic demonization of it makes no sense. I'm going to wrap this up now by coming back to one of my first points, which was that I do hope that we can find a way for men and women to come together and try to move forward from this. However, it's not going to happen the way that you framed your video. You framed it as, okay, look, we've made mistakes, but let's move on now. Let's stop fighting. And while that sounds like peace on the surface, when you really get to the point, how are we actually going to move forward? You know, you are completely dismissing the years and years of harassment and abuse and oppression Muslim women have been going through. That is not reconciliation. You are just kindly demanding us to be silent again. And that's not going to happen. We all know that the Dawa community is very fragile right now. You guys are being attacked from the outside. I just saw Tommy Robinson's video on Ali Dawa. You guys have issues between yourselves, public infighting, da'is signing petitions against other da'is, and now you have Muslim women calling you guys out, going viral, and telling the world that actually, yes, these men are abusive. Yes, we are actually being oppressed by Muslim men. And so we get why you guys need this war between Muslim women and the Dawah Bros to be over. However, it's not going to happen by downplaying our problems and by silencing us the second we find our voices. Women have been harmed by Muslim men for decades, and we are only now just finding the courage to use our voices and call you guys out. And the second we start to do so, you guys want to be like, let's just move on, guys. That is not going to rebuild trust. That is not going to bring about collaboration. That's not how we're going to go about this. And using the suffering of women in Palestine as a way to dismiss what we're going through here is also not going to work. I want to be very clear on this. None of us are comparing our experiences to what women in Palestine are going through. We are not competing in suffering, and we are not diminishing their pain in any way. But you repeatedly using the suffering of women in Palestine as a way to dismiss and belittle our lived experiences here is not a moral argument, it is a silencing tactic. What you're using here is shame. It's the suggestion that we should feel embarrassed or morally inferior for talking about our suffering because someone else in the world is suffering more. It's a classic form of gaslighting and something us Muslim women are far too familiar with. If Muslim men and women are truly going to come together and end this conflict, it is going to require more than just words. You've said in your video that you guys have made mistakes as if that alone constitutes accountability, but real accountability here, it's going to require more than just your words. Real accountability here is going to be you guys naming your mistakes, calling out your mistakes, correcting those mistakes, and then correcting the men who have followed in your footsteps, causing real harm to women because of your mistakes. A genuine collaboration here requires genuine acknowledgement. That means you Dawa guys are going to have to openly recognize the harm that has been caused, the harassment, the bullying, the structural oppression. You guys are going to have to name the behaviors, the teachings, the ideologies that have contributed towards the harm. You can't just say, we've made mistakes. You have to call out and name those mistakes and correct them. I don't want this to be another back and forth. This is a genuine attempt at reaching out to see how sincere you guys are in wanting change that benefits all of us. Are you guys willing to engage in real actionable change? Or is this just going to be another moment where appearances are preserved, but the underlying harm continues? Muslim women are ready to collaborate. If you guys are sincere in wanting to address the real problems here, create safer communities, and ensure that the next generation of Muslim women are actually supported and empowered. But we cannot be asked to compromise our dignity anymore. We cannot be asked to ignore the harm, to be silent, or to pretend the abuse didn't happen just to preserve the appearance of the Dawah Bros. So if you guys genuinely want a collaboration, then honestly, now is the time to show it, because I, along with so many other Muslim women, are not going to be silenced again.